Yep. Ja, meine Damen und Herren, herzlich willkommen zur ersten Pressekonferenz im Wettbewerb in diesem Jahr.
A very warm welcome to the first competition press conference this year. We'd like to welcome the opening film of the city's second Berlin International Film Festival.
Und zwar Adieu, les adieux à la reine, farewell my queen.
Les adieux à la reine, farewell my queen. And as ever, we'll start on the right-hand side, and I'd like to welcome Gilles Torrent, scriptwriter. A very warm welcome to the producer, Jean-Pierre Guérin. Playing Gabrielle de Polignac, a very warm welcome to Virginie Ledoyen. It's been a while since you were in Berlin. The last time was with the beach. Perhaps some of you might recall that. Playing Sidonie, a warm welcome to Léa Seydoux.
In
1996, in the Panorama, A Single Girl, a warm welcome to the director, Benoît Jacot.
And
a guest who's really part and parcel of the festival. Last year we entered the festival with her, and we're delighted now to open this festival with her, Diane Kruger, playing Marie Antoinette. Next to me is the other producer, the co-producer, Christina Larson. A very warm welcome to you too. There's a question here at the front. Please do remember to wait for the microphone.
Hi, congratulations everybody. Stephen Shaver here from Boston Herald. I wonder, Diane, what was your biggest challenge for such a well-known historical figure of Marie Antoinette, and do you see this as the lesbian version of Marie Antoinette, something we never might have known about before?
Well, I think whenever you are portraying a historical figure, a lot of people already have opinions about that figure. What she should look like, whether they liked her or not. A lot of people have, especially in the case of Marie Antoinette, judged her. You know, some think she was a poor little party girl that was, you know, put in a situation that she was just overwhelmed by. Others think she was, you know, a terrible queen and spoiled and rotten. So I was trying to not judge her. The movie is very weirdly intimate. You know, we see Marie Antoinette in her chambers, in her bedrooms. And the reason I really felt like I could bring something to the part, we have the same origins, right? I am about the same age as she was when she was taken from Versailles. And I felt like there were enough things that I identified with. I could relate to her as a woman, you know, being betrayed by Gabrielle, her love, the one person that she trusted and loved. It was a very difficult part because you only see her in vignettes, right? So the movie takes place the 14th, 15th, 16th, and 17th of July. So on the 14th, she doesn't know the Bastille has been taken. So this is when you really see her as she's been portrayed before, sort of aloof and, you know, doesn't have a care in the world. And then the next time she's heard about what happened in Paris. And I think what's coming is dooming on her. And she finally realizes that things are coming to an end. And every scene that I was in was completely different. Like there was never a line, you know, you could relate to. So it was very extreme in emotions. You know, the way Benoît saw her, she's borderline crazy a little bit, you know. So it was a challenging, definitely one of the most challenging parts I've had. And then it's 18th century French, which doesn't help either. So. And no, I don't think she's a lesbian. I don't know.
Yes, question here.
Ja, guten Tag, Maciej Berlin vom polnischen Rundfunk.
Maciej Berlin from the Polish radio. I have one question for the scriptwriter. I'd be very interested to know which sources you used in doing research for this film. What were your particular sources of inspiration in literature, in historical literature, and last but not least, in art as well? And indeed in art history. And I would also like to put a question to the director. I felt it was very important in this film to take the film music, the score and the sound design into account. I think that made a very great contribution to this film. So perhaps you could say a few words to us about working on the score and generally about the sound design, exactly how it came into being. Thank you.
Non, mais pour répondre à la question qui ne m'était pas adressée concernant la reine Marie-Antoinette.
The question that wasn't put to me about Marie Antoinette, about the Queen, I think the greatest challenge was really opening the Berlin Film Festival, being the opening film. I think that is a great challenge. And I was talking about the Queen. I mean, if she'd known that she would be the opening film at the Berlinale, she would have been absolutely delighted. And that would have cheered her up a bit and lifted her spirits in those very troubled days. I feel like saying that, of course, quite apart from Chantal Thomas' wonderfully written book, I almost forgot about literature, text, sources. I spent hours and hours reading various sources, historians, documents about that era. And indeed specifically about those few days from the 14th of July, that famous night when the king was woken up. He felt nothing was happening, but actually everything was going to fall apart up until the 17th. In fact, we added another day with Benoit. We extended that period of the revolution. And what I was the most fascinated by was the way in which everything went off the rails and became unregulated. The way in which Chantal Thomas talks about this, I think, is a very good basis for thinking about this. That was certainly our underpinning. The question is whether you're working as a historian. I mean, it happens all the time when you're a scriptwriter and you're asked to adapt a chapter from the history of France. Of course, there's always specialists of the era who do not agree. And there are an infinite number of aspects which one could quibble with, of course. Marie Antoinette, of course, was very hard to really get a handle on. She was somewhat ephemeral in a sense. Now, Sidonie was invented, and that gave us a great deal of freedom. There's also a very fascinating source of information for scriptwriters, and that's the internet. Google. If, for example, you've got writer's block, and you wonder what the miracle product was that was used for mosquito bites in the 17th century. Well, you just Google it and you find out it's rosewood. And that is something that no scriptwriter could ever simply dream up, no matter how rich their imagination. So you spend a lot of time doing that kind of research into all those tiny details. And I think that's more important than the real historic layering. But the really tangible things, the intimate things, I feel are very important. Working with Benoit, focusing on the adaptation, we wanted to be as close as possible to the concrete, tangible sense of those days, to the stench and to the beauty of Versailles in that era. And I think this is something which doesn't really trickle through into many works. In a sense, it's the birth of a very intimate view of the Queen. And I think that's all I have to say for now. Picking up on what Gilles has just explained so very precisely, as a matter of fact, what's important to me is to have a screenplay which, even if it talks of the distant past, makes everything that I film as present as possible, so that the actor's performance is very present for us as well, for contemporary audiences.
anecdotique qui peut renvoyer à une intimité
elements
de la
which
vie, des personnages,
make
des
the
situations dans lesquelles
situations, the characters, their daily lives more intimate,
une présence, une vie aux choses qui les rendent,
makes matters more tangible, more solid, more present and real, even if they date from a century far, far from ours. That brings them much, much closer to us. As to the music, to pick up on your other question, there's been several films where I've been working with Bruno Coulet, who produced the score, and we worked in a rather unusual way. The music is actually composed pretty much before we start shooting, and that means that that score is an organic, integral part of the film that I want to make. I know more or less what the music is going to look like, certainly what kind of rhythm it will have, even before I start directing, and that's very important to me.
Ja.
Question in the back.
Matthias Dice Können Sie bitte aufstehen, damit Matthias
Dice, first Could you stand up?
Tagesschau. I have a question for Ms. Kruger. The jury president, Mark Lee, told us here in this room earlier that you cannot watch a film and discuss about a film on Berlinale without noticing what is going on in the world at this moment. So if you see the Arabic Spring in these days, and your film is a little bit about the French Revolution, do you see any actual link between that?
Well, sure, but you know that is up to the audience to see that parallel. You know, we certainly didn't set out making a movie trying to, you know, resonate with. We couldn't know what is happening today. What, you know, any revolution, and in particular this one, obviously is an abuse of power, is an abuse of money, and that is still going on these days. So all of those movies, all of history that has happened is resonant today because we seem as people to continue to make the same mistakes. But you know, you never set out making a movie thinking, oh, you know, this is gonna resonate now.
Eine Frage hier vorne, bitte.
Question at the front.
Christine Loranger,
from Montréal. My question is from Mr. Jacot. And I'm putting this question to you in terms of an artist of the cinema now. Changes of perspective, that's one of the topics of the Berlinale, and you like that in the way in which you film. Changes of perspective in cinematic terms as well. And there's also another change in perspective because we're moving from film stock to digital, and I wonder whether you're ready to make that leap, if you'd be ready to film in digital. Don't know anything about the format that was used for this film. Well, yes, you don't know, and you probably won't know, neither will I, in a sense. But would you be willing and ready to film digital? Oh, yes, it was actually shot in digital. What does that change for you, shooting in digital? Well, to tell you the truth, to be quite sincere, does make some changes, but they're all for the better. I know that that's not what many of my colleagues say. Many of them lament the eras of chemical processing, of film stock. It's my 20th film. I produced 19 of them with traditional film stock and traditional processing. This is the first one that I've shot in digital. And I don't actually think that I'm ever going to go back to traditional film stock. It might be a little silly to say this. It might be a little oversimplified as a response. I don't drive, as a matter of fact. I don't have a car. But it's a bit like saying in the automated age, in the era of the car, that you actually prefer horses in a way. I mean, saying that we should all work with film is a bit like saying that everyone who drives a car should ride horses. And what about the performance, the acting? Well, yes, you never have that kind of cut that you used to have, that kind of caesura, and it was wonderful because I had enormous long stretches of text. I couldn't sleep for weeks on end. I didn't know how I was going to get it all into my head. And you don't have to worry about Film Ledoyen. It's the first time she's shot with me. Virginie has already worked with me twice on 2 films actually prior to this one, and we didn't wait either. Well, yes, but you know, if you have film, no, we didn't wait for anything. We just got on with it. It was the same thing on the set as well, and there are colleagues who shoot more slowly than me, and I reckon that for them it was probably a revolution, certainly.